The Secret of Moonacre is a 2008 family-friendly fantasy film loosely based on the novel The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Gouget. It was the second directorial effort by Gabor Chupo following his debut with Bridge to Terabithia just a year prior. It stars Dakota Blue Richards from Golden Compass fame, who portrays Maria Merriweather, a young girl who, upon being recently orphaned by her father's death, inherits a mysterious book and is sent to live with her eccentric uncle at Moonacre Manor. The film is an awkward amalgamation of fantasy tropes and relations to many movies of a similar style, which came out at the same time. Obviously, we have the same director of Bridge to Terabithia and the same lead actress as The Golden Compass. But we also have a fantastical lion akin to Chronicles of Narnia, as well as the same sort of Jesus allegory. Maria Merriweather also inherits a book from her ancestors called The Ancient Chronicles of Moonacre Valley, which begs comparison to the Spiderwick Chronicles, where something very similar happens. And of course, she is the Chosen One, much like the film Aragon and countless other Chosen One stories. Despite borrowing aspects from a pool of decent movies, The Secret of Moonacre is a boring, goofy mess plagued by bad acting, a terribly uneventful plot, and subpar special effects. So let's take a dive into the plot of this steaming pile of unicorn nuggets. Despite me just dunking on this film, it does have a somewhat promising start, albeit with some red flags to warn the viewer of what they are in store for. The biggest strength of the film, in my opinion, is the original score composed by Christian Henson, who has an expansive career of working on a bunch of movies I'm sure you've never heard of. At least I haven't. The score is great though. If you were to listen to the soundtrack without first seeing the film, you'd certainly imagine a much better movie. The melody of the Moon Princess theme is particularly emotive, and various themes are reprised well in a way that helps remind the viewer of the nature of our characters' relationships, which the film certainly needs because it is a bit confusing and discerning just who exactly everybody is. This is because it's one of those movies that flashes back to the past, and all of our main characters' ancestors are portrayed by the same actors. Because they pretty much look exactly the same, and the two time periods seem to have no differences, it's very confounding. In fact, it wasn't until my second viewing, yes, I managed to watch this thing twice, that I fully realized the ancestors are indeed different people than the present-day characters set in presumably Victorian-era Europe. It's confusing not just because the ancestors look exactly the same, but they have the same dynamics and their relationships to each other. These flashbacks are shown whenever Maria reads her father's book, and it pretty much only conveys one single event, which makes the size of the book quite comical. Basically, long ago there was a magical moon princess who, because of her purity and goodness, was bestowed a gift from Mother Nature in the form of magical pearls. Apparently, these pearls can grant a person's every desire, though we are never shown any evidence of this. What we are shown is that the pearls reveal the true intention of men's hearts. The Moon Princess was of the Denoir family, and on her wedding night, when she was to marry a man from the Merriweather family, a conflict broke out between her husband and her father over who would inherit the pearls and get to wield their power. The pearls were lost during the scuffle, with both families thinking the other had stolen them. Because of their wicked, greedy hearts, the Moon Princess put a curse on the valley. It's a little unclear, but I guess the curse is that on the 5,000th moon from that day, the valley would be destroyed, if the two families could not set aside their pride and band together or something like that. I don't know, it's not super clear what exactly the curse means, but it doesn't really matter. Basically, since then, the two families have been at odds, with the Merriweathers living out their generations at the elegant Moonacre estate, and the Denoirs living in some evil-looking castle with a forest that separates the two. So back to the beginning of the film. Maria is accompanied by her governess and pseudo-guardian, Miss Heliotrope, who the film establishes early on as one of the most obnoxious and unlikable characters in all of cinema, a title soon to be rivaled by Maria's uncle, Sir Benjamin. There is a, quote, joke early on where during their carriage ride to their new home, Miss Heliotrope lets out a disgusting belch. It really caught me off guard during my first viewing, as toilet humor is the lowest kind of comedy, and it so far seemed like this movie would have more integrity than sinking to such a low. But if you thought this belch was simply a one-time occurrence, you thought wrong, because it's a recurring motif throughout the film. Miss Heliotrope lets loose several cringe-inducing burps throughout the film, and oh my god, I fucking hate it. It makes me genuinely angry to hear this disgusting sound. Maybe it bothers me more than most, I don't know, but it's so aggravating to listen to. Thank fucking God I didn't wear headphones watching this shit, because I'd probably punch a hole in the drywall by the time the movie had wrapped. Miss Heliotrope is absolutely insufferable. Everything she does is irritating. She is often shown eating in a very obnoxious manner, and she doesn't even treat Maria right, often choosing to side with Sir Benjamin during their arguments because it's the path of least resistance. Speaking of, let's discuss another prominent, irritating character, Sir Benjamin. Sir Benjamin is a class act royal dick. Throughout the entire film, he is rude and insufferable to everyone he interacts with. He is a misogynist who makes digs at womankind. He yells at everybody for pretty much doing anything and throws immature temper tantrums on par with a spoiled 5-year-old. The biggest fault of the film is how much screen time these two awful characters are given. Often, the film oscillates between a scene with Heliotrope and a scene with Sir Benjamin. The film apparently aims to annoy its viewers as much as possible by double-teaming them with this detestable pair of terrible people. An early example of this is when Sir Benjamin takes the book away from Maria. This book was the only piece of inheritance her recently deceased father left behind, and when Maria becomes upset, she is chastised by Miss Heliotrope, and Sir Benjamin goes on a tangent insulting Maria's father. This sort of dynamic is consistent throughout the film's runtime, and while it does succeed at making you empathize with Maria, it also makes you hate Sir Benjamin and Miss Heliotrope, who in the film wants you to like. Sir Benjamin's character was clearly inspired by Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. But while Darcy was largely misunderstood and had positive traits which successfully made him a redeemable character, Sir Benjamin does not. Take for instance the relationship between Sir Benjamin and his love interest, Loveday Noir. He constantly insults her, yells at her, and aims to dominate her into submission, but she puts up with this abuse and finds him charming, simply because he wants to be with her. I mean, what an awful message to convey, that a toxic relationship such as this is acceptable and even romantic. Like, oh yes, he's a total douchebag, but he wants to be with me, so that he may continue to abuse me, and that is enough to win my heart. How could I refuse this man who constantly belittles me? He wants me, and I can't say no because I'm a woman, so oh well. A similar toxic dynamic is portrayed through Miss Heliotrope and the character Digweed. Throughout the film, Miss Heliotrope is a total asshole to Digweed. She insults him, hits him, yells at him, but for no reason other than succumbing to heteronormity, Digweed proposes to Miss Heliotrope at the end of the film, and she says yes. Like, why? Just because he's a man and it's wrong for a woman to deny a man's advances? That's what it seems like. The movie is riddled with these misogynistic jokes about how annoying and useless women are. The message seems to be, if you're a woman and a man wants to be with you, then you must say yes. And it's conveyed as romantic, not shown with any self-awareness as to how truly awful it is. How about a third example, like the relationship between Maria, a young girl, and a clearly much older man, Robin de Noir. Robin assaults Maria several times, threatens to kill her, and is depicted as a villain. In fact, his character design strongly resembles the main character from Clockwork Orange, Alex Delarge, one of the most evil, sadistic characters in cinema history. But because Robin decides to help Maria at the end of the film, she becomes smitten with him. It's fucking gross. Especially because of the age gap. I looked it up, and Dakota Blue Richards was 15 at the time of filming Moonacre, and the actor who played Robin was 20. She looks like she's 15, and I would have believed you if you told me he was 26 instead of 20. I was truly flabbergasted when the film started to suggest a romance between them. Like, Jesus Christ. But after all, she is a woman, and we can't roll credits on this dumpster fire without each female character being buddied up with a man. God forbid we do that. It's a great example of how simply having a female protagonist doesn't make a film inherently feminist. Moonacre is incredibly problematic in its depictions of gender roles and heteronormative relationships. I've barely talked about the plot because there hardly isn't one. Like, truly nothing happens in this movie. It's a fucking chore to watch, a boring mess of mediocrity. I watched this fucking thing twice because I wanted to be thorough in my review, and each time I could hardly make it 15 minutes further in the movie because my eyes were forcing themselves shut and I was falling asleep. Maybe, besides the decent score, the best attribute of this film is its amazing ability to put you the fuck to sleep. There's no action. Hardly anything fantastical happens. It's just characters bickering with each other, and every now and then, Rolf the red-eyed big black dog, who is the reincarnation of the black lion from the flashbacks, will scare some bad guys away. Just like, show the dog barking, cut to the ruffians running away, and there you have it. The most exciting this film ever gets. How fun. What's even more fun? Well, watching the dog get shot and killed, of course. So much for the cardinal screenwriting rule of save the cat. It's such a cheap way to get your audience to feel something, and it doesn't even mean anything because not 20 minutes later, the dog is brought back to life anyway. Like, fuck you, movie. If you're gonna go there, then stay there. At least have the integrity to stick with your choice and not double back on it. It's so lame. Truly upsetting to watch. I would be remiss if I ended this review without mentioning the Moonacre Manor Chef, Marmaduke Scarlet, played by Andy Linden. I actually like this character, or at least the acting performance. Despite this dude's silly hat, he's got the riz. I just really enjoy Linden's performance and how charming he makes this character, accented by the fact that he is the only male character who isn't a total asshole. For some reason too, he has powers, like he can teleport and has super speed. It's never explained why the fucking cook has superpowers and nobody else does, but like whatever, who cares at this point, right? Well, what about Tim Curry? I mean, the legendary Tim Curry is in this thing. Surely he raises the quality a bit, right? Well, not really. His character is oddly subdued and doesn't really do much. The film doesn't give Curry the freedom to really do his thing, so it's pretty much irrelevant we have such an acting legend in this role. It's really a sad use of such a talented actor. I do think it's funny how Curry always wears a mask only when he rides his horse. Like, it's clearly a tool to better conceal the fact that they are using a stunt double for the horse riding scenes. Like, okay, I'm getting on my horse, time to wear my mask that completely covers my face, and I'm off my horse, so off comes the mask. Oh god, speaking of the mask, let's talk about the costume design. The costume design of Secrets of Moonacre is absolutely atrocious. It's a fantastic example. Just because you can make a creative choice doesn't mean you should. Every outfit is gaudy, loud, and terribly tacky. It's just all way too extra. Dresses have so many little spindles and pieces of fabric protruding everywhere. They are true eyesores. Irritating to behold, and you'll be staring at them during the course of this entire film because, of course, women only wear dresses in this world. Even when Maria is preparing to venture into the forest to find the lost pearls, she dons a long, flowy dress. Perfect for dragging across the floor, I'm sure. The funniest choice is Robin's character, who wears a single strip of black fabric across his nose. Like, fucking why? It doesn't conceal his identity at all. Sure, it's an original choice, but that doesn't make it good. It just looks silly. Clearly the costume designer of this film had no restraint and was just going for it, making all sorts of wild swings. I guess I can admire the effort, but it's not what the movie needed, and it's not ever executed in a way that works. It's just messy and gaudy and hard to look at. There's a couple scenes I want to describe because of how laughably bad they are. When Maria first ventures into the forest, she finds a rabbit trapped in a cage. As she approaches the rabbit, the noir henchmen pop out from the surrounding trees and ambush her. Like, okay, so you guys just put this rabbit here in the middle of the forest and waited exactly how long? Banking on the fact that Maria would explore the woods against her uncle's wishes so you could catch her, and then what? Like, what does capturing her do exactly? She evades them this time, but is later successfully captured by the Noirs. But what is their motivation? Just because they hate the Merryweathers? She doesn't know where the pearls are. They don't interrogate her or use her as bait or anything. They just catch her and lock her up. But not 2 seconds later, she escapes, so you don't really even have a chance to think about what was the point. What's funny too is later on in the film, she will use this exact same technique to catch Robin. Like, she puts her bunny in a trap, and he walks up to it and gets caught in a trap. Like, bro, that's the exact technique you used to catch her like half an hour ago. How dumb are you? Well, not as dumb as her, I guess, because she releases him and immediately gives him back his sword. Like, bruh, you have no reason to trust this dude who has assaulted you multiple times, and as soon as she gives him back his sword, he threatens to kill her. Duh. But not 2 seconds after that, he agrees to help her. Like, okay, whatever movie, just have stuff happen, without any real reasoning or logic. Who fucking cares? Another thing I find funny is how much time the movie spends on showing Maria care for animal pets. It's to show us how pure of heart she is, because she is the new moon princess, and in this movie, women must be pure, nurturing, and caring. They aren't allowed to be brave, bold, or courageous. That's the men's job. But what's really funny is the main bad guy has an animal companion as well. Two, in fact. He has his hawk, which he uses to spy on people, and his horse. So it kind of makes the theme mute. Like, is caring for animals supposed to signify goodness and purity? Then, like, shouldn't the bad guy not like animals, or at least not have his own animal companions? It's also funny how much effort the movie gives into describing the pony Periwinkle as feisty. Like, we are only ever shown the pony in a single scene where it appears to be rather docile. Like, Maria is riding the pony who's being chill, and Maria's like, oh man, she's feisty. Like, okay, movie, I thought this was going to be a relevant characterization, but the pony never shows up again. So I'm not sure why the movie wastes time doing things like this. Probably a detail from the source material they did not need to include, but included anyway to fill some time. So, like, whatever. Okay, fuck it. Let's just skip to the end. I'm about done with this piece of shit. So throughout the film, the main plot device is to find the lost pearls, so the two families can band together and cast them into the sea, satisfying Mother Nature and lifting the curse. I do like how when the 5,000th moon approaches, it has entered Earth's atmosphere and is starting to collide with the ocean. It's a really cool visual, and I'm a sucker for these types of depictions of megalophobia. Reminds me of the moons crashing into the surface of Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. So Maria obtains the pearls, and both families gather on the cliffside where it all began, as shown in the flashbacks. Everybody is too prideful to admit fault, so Maria says she must do this herself. Here we actually get some cool visuals. Maria tries to throw the pearls in the ocean, but they come flying back and stick to her all over her body. She then realizes she must make the ultimate sacrifice, and she casts herself into the ocean, presumably killing herself as everybody watches. However, she doesn't stay dead. This is, after all, a not-so-subtle Jesus metaphor, so she is instead brought back to life by some ocean horses, of which the CGI looks absolutely terrible. The image of these horses running in the waves is also lifted straight from Lord of the Rings, so congrats Moonacre, you managed to rip off another superior fantasy classic. Of course, since she comes back to life after successfully lifting the curse, everybody is happy and no longer has issues with each other. It's cheesy, cheap, and doesn't make much sense. But whatever, we get our obligatory happy ending. Now time for everybody to pair up. Sir Benjamin and Loveday get together, Digweed proposes to Heliotrope, and we get a little flirty moment between the young teenager and adult man. Great, cool, finally, the fucking film is over. So clearly I did not like Secrets of Moonacre. I wanted to originally give it 0 out of 5 stars, but after my second viewing, I decided it deserves a humble half star out of 5. Like I said before, I really like the music. The actual directing and cinematography could have been much worse. Like, it at least has some nice lighting for the scenes outdoors, and the final scene with the pearls and the giant moon does at least provide some cool imagery. But besides that, the film is devoid of any value for me. It seems to rationalize and romanticize toxic, unhealthy relationships. It shits on women the whole time, and the costume design is complete ass. Fuck this movie. Thank God I'm done with this review. I sure hope the next one is better. Hard to imagine it could be worse. If you like this review, make sure to give the video a like. It'll really help my channel out. Better yet, give a good old smush to that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my weekly reviews. Next week, I'll be covering Inkheart, and we'll be continuing to review every movie of this particular cinematic movement, that being live-action, family-friendly fantasies released between 2005 and 2010. I also recently uploaded a short film I made called Stray, which is a loving devotion to my lost cat, Piera. In addition to all of that, I started working on my review for one of the most divisive Star Wars yet, The Acolyte, so stay tuned for some hot takes. My name is Newt Grundy, Jeremy Irons is a scrumptious man muffin, and I'll see you next week. Bye!